Well, hello, everyone. This is very, very exciting. Welcome to our second Campfire Chat. We are so excited to sponsor this series, the second, and who knows how many, but looking forward to reconnecting with friends and Moawanites from throughout the ages here in the future. I want to give a friendly reminder about our project, our fundraising project for the Fleming Falls Observation Deck. We are entering our last week of our capital campaign. And if you haven't visited www.ffpobservationdeck.com to check out the status or the drawings or very cool merchandise designed by none other than staff alum Adam Pate, you should check it out because it's some really cool things, and your support of those merchandise items help support the project. And we might ask, as a tiny little favor here, since we're at the very end of our capital campaign, if you all could choose 5 people that you worked with at Mowana and contact them via whatever connection way you have and ask them gently if they've contributed, and if not, to plant that seed, that would be super helpful. And of course, we all know that those personal connections can make a big difference. So those are our friendly reminders. Nick, do I need to say anything else about any of those items?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, our hostess with the mostest tonight is none other than the indomitable, I use that adjective, Karen Saupe, who served as a counselor in 1977, 1978, and then for 13 to 16 years as program director, and then Bible staff in between, and who knows what else unofficially roles she served. But Karen has a lot of experience with interviewing, and we are so pleased with our guests tonight. So I'm going to give it over to Karen to take it away. Thanks, Karen, for agreeing to be our hostess.
Well, what a treat. I'm going to ask that everyone who's not a Larkin or a Frase by birth, mute your mic for now. We'll have some time for open conversation toward the end. And I'm looking at the screen and seeing people who were on staff when I was a camper and people who were campers when I was on staff and all that mushy stuff. So it's good to see so many faces. Thanks for coming. So Deb, as you may know, Deb Frase Watkins is the youngest child of Virgil and Ruth Frase, as we always said. And Virgil was property manager and resident jokester from 1957 till around 1980. My recollection is he retired once and then came back, and I know that he continued to help around the place and mow and stuff for years after. And I remember Ruth as head cook and also maybe as housekeeping supervisor. Is that right, Deb?
Yeah, she helped Dad when she wasn't cooking. She helped with the cabins and the washing mattress covers and whatever needed done. A
little bit of everything. So
yep.
Yeah. And then, and I think probably almost everybody on the screen had some interactions, at least with Virgil. Ruth passed away before he did, but at their retirement, they were invited to remain in the house for as long as they wanted. And Virgil made it in the house well into his 90s. So many of you met him and heard at least a few of the jokes. You may not have had the treat of camping or working with Ruth. My first encounter with Ruth, I was about 8. We were on a family retreat. She sat down next to me and said, "Little girl, do you like oatmeal?" And I was afraid not to like oatmeal, so I've liked it ever since. But she fed us well in the 70s, and I remember both of them fondly. And then Ken the Lark was director of Camp Mowana from 1966 to about 1982. And so the Frase family came to Camp Mowana in 1957. Deb, what's your first memory of Camp Mowana?
Well, I was 2 when I moved there, so I don't remember a whole lot right off the bat. I think one of my earliest memories is probably when they added on the attached garage to the house. Because when we moved there, there was a separate freestanding, just 1-car garage. And I kind of remember them adding the garage to the house. That's probably my first real memory of it. And I can't tell you what year that was, but.
There you go.
Yeah.
Larkins, 1966, and you were all born, right? Joel was pretty little, pretty young.
I was 3.
Let me start with you, Joel, then. What's your earliest memory of Camp Mowana?
Well, I remember when we got there and we got a little dachshund dog named Snoopy, and just that's probably my first memory is little Snoopy running around and taking him on walks and
Good.
just, the place was huge. So I was so little, I didn't really see much of it at first. I'm sure just the house and around that area.
Good, good. Natalie, how about you? What's your first impression?
Well, I was about 8 years old, and we came in the back kitchen down that stairway to Oneida into the kitchen. That was the first memory of Mowana. All 3 kids, I think, were with, and when we met Ruth Frase, I remember feeling so intimidated by her, and then she gave us ice cream, and from then on, we were good.
There you are. Yeah. How about you, Kevin? You were a little bit older.
Yeah, I was only a year older than, or still am only a year older than that. Nat's birthday's coming up, so happy birthday, sis.
Okay.
Catching up.
But yeah, I remember that same day walking down those back steps. That was our way of entering. I don't think we ever came in the front door. We always snuck in the back door by the cooler. There was a huge cooler back there where they stored all the different foods. And then you came in the back of the kitchen, and then Ruth put us to work. I think we all worked in the kitchen doing various things over those years.
I wondered, well, actually, let me back up. And if we've got Bev, so Mom Larkin is on the phone at least, because I'm guessing the kids are too young to remember, but I'm curious to know, where were you before Camp Mowana, and why did Lark decide to come to Mowana?
Mom, that's you.
Well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nobody can hear me, right?
Yes, loud and
We can
clear.
all hear you, Mom.
We're
We can all
good.
hear you.
Can they? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was through it was actually the Lord's work, I know. We had a friendship with Jerry Miller, who was on the Ohio Senate staff at that time, and he had a connection with Dad, and we were living in Livonia, Michigan, where we had started a mission church, and we were there 12 years. And then we had this connection with Jerry Miller, and he is the one that connected us to coming to Ohio, and my husband to be on the Senate staff in charge of the camping and youth ministry and professional leadership. He had all those 3, and then later on was added conflict management. He had 4 areas that he was in charge of for the Senate staff. And that's how we got there, though, was through Jerry Miller.
Had you had any previous experience with camping ministries or outdoor camp at all?
Yes, he did. He was on the Senate staff from Michigan, for the Michigan. He was the secretary of camping ministry there.
Okay.
For I don't know how many years, but soon after we married and started that mission church, he got involved in the camping ministry and the Michigan Senate too.
Okay. So that makes some sense. Larkin kids, I know that you each were campers there at least 1 week of summer, right? You all went to Luther and you each camped at Mowana. Deb, did you also camp?
I did not.
Okay.
I figured I was there every day, and I was not a camper. But when after Mom passed and Dad married Edna, she sent my daughter was there for a week when she was little, so she did get to camp there.
Well, so this leads to my question. I kind of wondered. I think a lot of us have referred to Camp Mowana as home over the years. I think for me as a camper, it took about 14 hours to decide that was home. I remember my parents wouldn't pick me up, but and any of us who've worked there, I think, sort of begin to call it home. But for y'all, it really was. And so I'm wondering, did you think of yourselves as living at camp, or was camp a thing that happened at your property in the summer and during retreats and stuff?
No, I just felt that I lived on the camp. I was lucky enough to be able to roam free. I still like to be out in the woods, and I have horses. And so, yeah, I bought a house. Actually, I'm only probably maybe 8 miles from camp. I don't know if you remember the little village of Mifflin, but I'm just east of Mifflin. And I have my own property, and it has lots of trees and fruit trees and nut trees and a little bit of everything. And I'm sure Dad would be proud.
I didn't
So
know
I'm-
about the orchard behind your home growing up until I was program director, and
Right.
wonderful, yeah. So you've replicated that. How about you, Larkins? Was camp a thing that happened at your home, or did you live at camp?
Who do you want to go?
I think you should all talk at once in unison, but why don't I start with Kevin?
Can I say something?
Yes.
My mom wants to say something.
Beverly. And my main connection with the camp was, I always did all the registrations prior to camp opening, when Ellie would come in and take it over. And I did that in my home, from our home. And sometimes my kids would get involved, like sealing the envelopes and things like that.
Yeah.
It was all done by hand.
We had the big stamping parties.
Yep.
Yeah, stamping.
Oh, that's
This
something.
old machine that Ellie, of course, worked with too. That you hand cranked it, and you wrote everything out by hand on the receipts, and there was triple copies, I think, and something like that. Anyway, so that I did all those 16 years we lived there. And then I also, on Sunday afternoons, I served in the camp store,
I remember.
and always took care of the, when the people were done registering their kids, they'd come over to the camp store and start
Deposit
buying
our
stuff.
funds. Yeah. Yep.
That was fun.
That sparks a memory of the camp store when we would get all those boxes, and then we would load the camp store up, and we would build forts up in the upstairs of Oneida out of the boxes that all the stuff came in.
Yeah.
That was good times.
Toilet paper boxes were the best.
Yeah, yeah.
The behind the scenes stuff I have wondered about. Yeah.
Yeah, Joel reminded me of the stamping party, because
Yeah.
that was actually at Christmas time. So
Mhm.
that Dad and Ellie got it in their head that they had to send a Christmas card to all the campers. And in those days, there were something like 3,000 campers in the summer. And then, all the people that came to work at the camp needed a Christmas card as well. So we would go to Oneida and sit around the table
Yep.
in the middle of winter and stuff envelopes with these Christmas cards. And then some of us got the idea that we had to lick them, but that didn't last very long, because your tongue just wore out.
Right.
You had to use these sponges, so that
Right.
you would do it that way.
I think probably every camp director has employed their young children in ways that, absolutely, like you can't run anything. Even the English department here can't run without the 8-year-olds. So, yeah.
Yes.
Good.
But
Yeah.
living at that camp was like, to me, a lot of my memories were not in the summer, because we just having that, like Deb was saying, with the free reign and nobody's around, and we just bicycle all over the place.
Yeah.
And learn to drive. We learned to drive back there.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
just at the winter time, well, you guys know, not everybody knows, but it's just so beautiful in the winter time, and
Yeah.
everything is frosted with snow. And I remember Dad telling me one day, hey, let's go for a walk, and he took me to the chapel in the woods, and the whole way was like we were the only 2 sets of footprints in the entire, white blanket, a foot of snow. And you get to the chapel, and all the seats were like loaves of bread, and he didn't say a word, and neither did I the whole time. It was just like so so we were in such an awe and reverence. We would just walk there, and I think might have prayed and then walked home and just in silence. So it was just a memory that I will always treasure.
Wow.
Yes.
It's so quiet there in the winter.
Yes.
Um,
So quiet.
Yeah, tell us about off season. That's me coming from my summer camp perspective, but there were retreats even back there, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
So-
yes.
Every weekend.
Three retreats could be done each weekend in each of the lodges, Oneida and Oswego and Mohican. So we could have 3 groups come in, or sometimes they would double up and one of the lodges. But it was almost every weekend except when like the holidays, Christmas and so on. There, in fact, that's when we would take our vacation because our kids were not able to, they were off on the summer, but Ken wasn't. So we would go back to Ohio or to Iowa to visit our parents. Both of our parents lived in Davenport, Iowa. And that would be in the winter at that 2-week time when they were off school.
Yeah, I had wondered what I'm assuming the whole family was enlisted for a lot of retreat work, and that really does tie you down, doesn't it? Deb, how early were you brought in to help out with kitchen and housekeeping? And stuff?
I remember going with Mom before grade school even. I mean, she helped Dad, and so I just went tagged along with them. I remember there was a small drain grate in the kitchen that was square, and it had small holes in it for the drain instead of like slots. And it was my job to use the ice pick and poke the dirt out of those little holes. I think actually that was just to keep me busy, but I do remember doing that. And I actually started getting paid for mowing when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, hand pushing all those yards. And by the time you got done, it was probably pretty well ready to start again. So
Yeah.
I still like mowing, but yeah. No.
Joel, you were on the riding mower. When I was on staff, that was your staff position. You were a little
Right.
bit younger than we were. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I did 5 years of mowing anyway. I got a 5-year pin before I left there. It was, a lot of work, really, not just mowing, supplying all the lodges in the winter with firewood and chainsawing firewood and plowing snow. And it was a, full year job.
So it sounds like completely fun and a whole lot of work growing up there. What did each of you like best about growing up at camp? And I'll start this time with Natalie.
Well, the best thing I liked is nature. It just instilled in me this incredible love and need to be in nature. And also the love of community. Like can you imagine being a kid surrounded by all the camp counselors and that whole Christian community thing and just living there all summer long? It was just getting to meet all the campers. I've got lifelong friends that I went to camp with, and some of them are on here now. And so it's been those two things stand out for me.
We are seeing lots of familiar faces, and we will save some time at the end for open conversation because we've got some reuniting to do here.
People.
Yeah. Deb, how about your favorite part of growing up at camp?
I think I'm with Natalie on that. Just being out in nature. I just love to be outside. I still do. We'd come home and Mom would have supper ready, and we'd hear the chapel bells, and we'd hit the road and hoof it down to get to chapel almost every night. So that was a big part, I think, of me growing up. I enjoyed the chapel in the evenings, and in the winter you didn't have that, but like Natalie said, you had the serenity of the snow, and if it was really cold, it sparkled at night or crunched when you walked on it. And yeah, it's just the quietness and the aloneness. I think people talk about walking with God, and boy, that's the place to do it. You just were alone and you had all of nature surrounding you. That was the best for me.
As much as I love the community of Camp Mowana, and of course that's the center of it all, but I always treasured those days at the end or the beginning of a staff reunion, or even in the summer, to just be alone there. And the quiet, I remember that one Christmas, there was a blizzard as our staff reunion was ending. And it was the first time I've ever not wanted to be at camp. I was afraid I wouldn't get home for Christmas. Larry borrowed a Bobcat and plowed up to my car so I could get out.
Yeah.
But apart from that just that silence and that glistening. Yeah.
Right.
Kevin, what was your favorite part of growing up at camp?
No, I'd say everything that Natalie and Deb said. It was just fun getting out. I mean, it was not unusual for us to just say in I don't know, in the morning, bye mom, we're headed out, and we would not come back until the end of the day when it was dark. And I remember doing it when there wasn't a lot of water on the lake when we were there, but we would go ice skating on that lake, and you know, that it was just, you know, we would go and do that. And then there was that hill where we would in the summertime go down on pieces of cardboard right next to the lake, and that we would sled down that. And you know, we darn near would run into the woods about every time. So it was kind of fortunate that we didn't do that.
I always wondered, were there ever times that you, in the summertime, all these campers are around, you've got free reign pretty much. Were there ever times when you kind of had to get out of the way so you weren't caught doing things that campers aren't allowed to do? Or well, and related question, was it ever hard for you to become the camper in the week that you were and feel some restraints on your freedoms?
I would say probably I was going to say the hardest thing probably is for our counselor.
I remember, well, it could have only been Joel, because Natalie and Kevin were on staff with me, but that, yeah, you were a little nervous when you had the director's kid in your cabin. Yep. I didn't ask Joel, what was your favorite memory of growing up at camp?
Well, what everyone else said, a lot of that too, but one of the things they didn't mention was the big blue bathtub. Love that pool.
Do a lot of swimming there.
And I would hit that a lot of times, you know, as I'd be mowing, I could just take a break, go swimming, and you know, what an awesome thing to be able to do on a hot day.
The rules were a little more lax back then, as I recall too. And if you had maybe a couple staff people around, you didn't necessarily need a lifeguard. So maybe more freedom to do that. I want to ask, what did you not like so much about growing up at camp, if there was anything?
I think mine was you lost your weekends, especially in the winter, because there was always groups in and you always had to get the lodges ready or work in the kitchen or dining hall. And, you know, you couldn't go to donkey basketball because there was a group in and you had to serve meals. And, but I didn't mind it, but I think it did kind of cut down on a little bit of the freedom as far as doing other things.
Did you have, so you're closer in age to the Larkins, that you have two older siblings, right, Deb?
I had four older, or I had two brothers and two sisters.
Oh, okay. And so were they, yeah, so did it help to have siblings around, or were they much older?
My oldest brother was quite a bit older than me. Matter of fact, he was in the service when we moved there, so he never really lived at camp. And my older sister, I barely remember her living there, so she wasn't there long. And then John and Lois, they both worked at camp. John helping with mowing and, you know, things with Dad, and Lois worked in the kitchen. But yeah, other than that, we all, you know, pitched in and had things to do. So
you weren't totally by yourself, but
right.
Yeah. How about you, Joel? What did you not like about growing up at camp?
Well, there wasn't too many disadvantages, really. It was pretty awesome there. And I mean, like Deb said, you know, some of the work on weekends that you have to do, but I would kind of get that done ahead of time. Usually didn't really have to be there, and I didn't really work in the kitchen much because I was always out on the grounds doing other stuff. Yeah. But not too many disadvantages, really.
Natalie?
Well, the only one thing I can remember is the phone there was a phone that was in our house, and that was the same phone as the camp number.
So it was a bat phone or it was an outside line?
Party line.
Now, this was an
Yeah.
outside line. And anytime, of course, we had to answer it all during the whole year because no one was in the offices up there. So it had to be that way. But then that was only like one phone number for our family, and it was shared with the whole camp. So when I think about that now, I don't even know how we managed that. But I remember the bat phone. You reminded me of this bat phone that we had that cranked, and it was, we had it, so if we got the phone rang at our house, we couldn't pick it up during the summer because Ellie would pick it up. And if it was for us, she'd call us on the bat phone, then we'd go up and it was like, I don't even know
Imagine what it's like to be maybe a teenager with a dating life, right? And
that's when it got difficult when I became a teenager. I didn't
oh
like
my. Those bat phones, I wish I knew what happened to those. For those of you who are younger, you maybe you've seen these in movies or something, but they were the really old-fashioned phones where yeah.
Hand crank, yeah.
Yeah.
They were battery powered. In case the power went out, they would still work.
Mm-hmm. I think they were, well, they weren't state of the art in the 40s, but the system was pretty impressive for the 40s. Kevin, what was hard about growing up at camp?
The only thing I can think of was because the camp was right on the border of Richland and Ashland, we were way out in terms of a bus ride. So we had to be the first ones on the bus in the morning, which meant we had to get up really, really early to get on the bus. And then the bus drove all the way out to Charles Mill Reservoir, turned around and picked up some kids out there. And then eventually it made it back into the high school. And then of course, at the end of the day, you were the last ones off because they did the whole thing in reverse. So you spent probably 45 minutes going in and 45 minutes coming out every day to go to school.
That's rough. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I wondered about living so far out. So I want to ask about physical changes to the camp over the years that you remember as significant. Deb, what springs to my mind is, were you old enough to remember the planting of the pines?
I do. I wasn't very old. I do remember getting packs and packs and packs of just tiny little twigs. And I remember them saying Dad broke 8 shovels because the dirt was so clay that they finally got some kind of a planting machine that was on the back of the tractor, and Dad would sit down behind the tractor and it would make a small hole and he would put the tree in. And so that's how they finally got them all planted and how they're in pretty straight rows.
And you all watched those trees grow up over the years.
Right.
They were very small. Yeah.
Yes.
I asked some kids a few years ago how old they thought the pines were, and I said that they were a year older or younger than I am. I don't remember the precise year. And then I said, how old do you think the pine forest is? And they said, 100. So I never asked. What other, Bev, you started to say something. Go ahead, please.
Me?
Mom?
Oh,
Mom, did you want to say something?
Well, no, I'm agreeing with all what you said. And all of our 3 children learned how to swim in that pool. And we also had a new pool put in when we lived there.
right.
Yes.
The old one went away and the new bigger one went in place. And our children were allowed to go over during the swim hour, when each of the either junior hill or intermediate hill were having their swim time. And there was always a lifeguard there. And I remember Richard Stewart was the first one we had.
Yep.
A really great guy. And he and Don were married there in the chapel in the woods.
Right. I think we need to schedule a conversation with Rich and Dawn sometime. There's such an interesting story there.
That would be great.
All right. Hard question, people. Maybe it's not hard. Did you jump off the falls? And if so, how young were you?
That would have been Joel.
It's a rite of passage I never felt tempted to participate in. Yeah.
Multiple times in multiple ages.
Yes, he also broke his foot or
He
leg
broke
or
his
something.
ankle. He broke his ankle swinging from a
Vine. Yeah.
That wasn't up the falls, no.
I was
No, but
thinking
it was
recently that
cute.
we used to swing from vines there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was behind the Intermediate Hill Council Fire where I swung out over that ravine and it broke, and well, really lucky I survived that, to be honest. It was a long fall and I fell right into some like a hot spring. It was the middle of winter, everything was frozen except for this area where I fell was kind of mushy and took most of the give. You know, I still broke my ankle, but that was about it.
Did get lucky. What yeah, you tell me about jumping off the falls, but I am wondering, what were some of the maybe secret places or opportunities or activities that you knew about doing at camp that maybe campers didn't do so much or didn't know about?
Well, one of the things I know that Joel and I think Natalie was up there as well, we used to scale that rock hillside above the falls. And we probably identified, I don't remember, maybe a dozen different Indian carvings in the hillside that we, you couldn't see them from anywhere until you could climb up on the hillside and take a look at some of that. But it was kind of a steep climb. And of course, if you fell, you would have done what Joel did, broke your ankle.
Right.
Yeah, we got into some precarious little ridges up there. We had to kind of go in from above and drop down. There was no path or anything, but it was fun. And I have to admit, I did swim in the falls one time down below. And I can't remember if I had clothing optional or not on that one. I can't recall, but it was with a boyfriend. I remember that.
Oh, okay. Well, then we better not pursue that in any detail. What about, I always wondered,
on the phone.
when we were young, my memory is that we could go into Hoppy's Cave, and I think eventually too much of that sort of collapsed, right? But I've always assumed that there were more caves around there. Do you know? Did you explore that side much?
There wasn't, that Hoppy's Cave was about the only one. There was some other ledges that were pretty substantial, but not really caves, so to speak, that I can recall anywhere.
Okay. I mean, we just need to know that we haven't missed something really important. Back to, I asked earlier about physical changes to the camp property that you remember as significant or really great or maybe even disappointing. And I'll add to that, maybe questions about what you remember Virgil or Ruth or Lark trying to make changes and maybe having struggles or getting pushback from the Senate or whatever.
I remember, I'm not sure if Larkins were there when they drained the pond to make it deeper. Were you guys there? And we had to catch all the fish basically by hand and put in barrels so they could put clay down in the bottom of the pond to seal the leaks. So yeah, I remember, I think we have on movie camera, Ellie like knee deep in mud, trying to catch fish in her hands to put in buckets.
I'd really like to see that movie.
That was an adventure.
My goodness.
Well, later on, they put a liner in,
Right.
is what I remember. And that's why it was keeping the water in now, or, at this
Right,
time.
there was sandstone leaks in it, so, yeah.
That was, I remember seeing the wreck, yeah.
I remember there was one time when the family went out for a dinner to Ponderosa Steakhouse, and there was this image of a Native American on a horse in the steakhouse. And of course, every steakhouse was the same. They were all the same way. But my dad had to have it. And so he had to figure out how to get this image to Mowana. And eventually it was hung on the outside of Mohican, so that there was a big image of a Native American riding a horse.
And that's from Ponderosa.
That's from a Ponderosa Steakhouse.
I always wondered that it's on the earliest postcards of Mohican. And Mohican was never an attractive building at all. But Eric had the idea, I think it was Eric's idea, of having wood siding put on it one summer, and suddenly everybody wanted to stay there.
Mm.
And it is a much more attractive building now. It is now the maintenance or the facilities headquarter for the preserve.
The council fire used to be right behind Mohican. I don't know if you recall that. Before they built the Kushari council fire.
Yeah.
Back behind the woods, behind Mohican.
See, these are the kind of collective historical memories that Nick is trying to preserve in these conversations. So that's good.
I just got to add one quick thing about when Joel mentioned the council fire. I flashed on a memory of this thing that my dad would portray the chief and he had this huge, head of eagle feathers all the way down, and I think Ellie made that for him actually. But anyways,
Yes.
we would all be pretty much dressed up in Native American attire. And once the counselors had the kids back to their cabin, my dad and the staff would go to Ernie's Dairyland down the road to get ice cream with our costumes on.
Oh,
And
see,
I just flashed on that, like, I don't know what we were thinking.
unwittingly, that's the forerunner, I guess, of the staff trip to the Mifflin Dairy Bar at the first weekend of every staff training. While Eric was director, we would take the whole staff dressed in the kookiest costumes they could find out to the Mifflin Dairy Bar, and it would be great because new staff members who maybe were a little shy just had to get over that immediately, and the police would always come to make sure we weren't up to no good. They would circle around a few times and then wave and leave, but they always came. You all were on staff, and Natalie and Kevin were counselors. Joel, I think you moved away before you would have been old enough to be a
Right.
counselor.
Yeah, I was 18 when I moved away.
Okay, yeah. So I wondered, was that something that you looked forward to doing, that you anticipated, or was it something that was expected and you weren't going to question it? Did you ever resist that? Being all of you worked clearly, and Deb's, all of you talked about doing that younger, but to become part of that summer staff, to become counselors, was that a positive thing for you, or was it difficult?
For me, it was positive. It was kind of one of the things that you looked forward to. You were a camper, and you always looked up to the counselors and thought, oh boy, I want to be one of those. And then we called them JCs back then. Remember that, the junior counselors. And then you got to do that, and then you had a good time doing that, and you went to senior high camp. And then, then when the time came, it was something that I was looking forward to.
And you were my counselor on the canoe trip.
That's
and
right.
then you were my PD.
That's right. That's right. And you were the one that went over the dam, right?
Yeah. No, I was the one carried gently and dropped into the water, or left by the Roger's there. Roger will remember. I overslept. Suddenly found my sleeping bag being transported the night we slept on an island. And I woke up and looked into the water.
Well, it was raining, and the water came up.
Dam Mohawk, the Dam Mohawk, that's what it was. Yes. We portaged up never mind. Okay, enough about me. That was a memory that we shall always treasure in retrospect, but not in the moment. And I see a lot of faces on screen that were on that trip too. That was the campers on that trip. I think just about all of us became counselors a few years later. Some quick memories. We do want to save some time for open conversation and other people to ask questions. Favorite camp food, each of you.
Oh, lots of it.
In wilderness camp, we would just vie for tomato rice mulligan.
Oh, bad flashback. Stroganoff was tolerable, but I remember that tomato rice stuff was all that would be left in the last weeks of camp.
Yeah.
Oh God.
No, my favorite was Ruth's cornbread.
Oh, that was mine. You took mine. I was going to do Ruth's cornbread, but also then I'll add the karate festival.
Karate festival is what I was thinking of. And
Yeah.
those
Really good.
corn bake, we used to have those corn bakes too out
Oh,
by the,
Oh, yeah.
So for the younger generation,
field.
these were Lark events. Tell us about the karate festival.
Well,
Well,
they-
that was, go ahead, Joel.
well, I was just gonna say they would get all this meat and put it down in Oneida, and I remember they made a whole big cow out of all the meat on this table. And it was like a big picture, the raw meat before they put it on the grill. And I don't know why they called it a karate festival. I guess because they were hacking the meat up so much. And
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
that was how they.
started it with spices and anything that would make the meat get more palatable.
It was the
Yeah,
tenderizer.
good.
They would go by with the
Tenderized, yeah.
and Dad would be sitting there like this, just
Yeah,
Wow.
working it in.
So it's
So he
really
thought it
was.
was like karate. So I think that's where the name came from. The karate festival was
It
he
all
was
makes sense
working
now.
in the tenderizer.
I usually never
Yeah,
thought
and-
to question Larkisms.
Yeah.
They just were.
You have funny words and the
Mhm.
karate festival, and then there was another Roki festival. We can't forget
Yes.
that. That
right.
was for specially just the staff only on their snow staff night off work. And they'd come over to our house and Dad would make hamburgers on the grill and drench them with Roquefort
Yes.
salad dressing
Yeah.
Mm.
or blue cheese. I can't remember which. I don't know, he called them Roki, but I think he put blue cheese on it. I don't remember.
No. Yeah.
Deb, did Ruth try out camp recipes at home, or she just always knew what to make?
Yeah, some of them she did. Usually, I remember like on Saturdays when it was just counselors, she'd try to have something different so the counselors didn't have to have the same thing all the time. So one time she got in her head and she fixed rabbit for the counselors and she didn't tell them what it was. And so a lot of them were trying to guess. And the one kid said, well, I don't know what it was, but he said, I got a wing. And it was rabbit meat. So he thought he was eating a wing. So he must have had a leg. I don't know, but
Special rabbit,
yeah,
only at camp.
right.
Flying rep.
I want to ask one last question and then open it up and share. But I just want to ask you how maybe one or two things about growing up at Mowana that helped shape who you are now, habits or beliefs or ideas or attitudes.
I think the chapel every night was helpful. I really enjoyed that. And there again, it was outside and, I don't know that I heard all the sermons, but you see the birds and the butterflies and kind of look around and see other people seeing what was around them and just the camaraderie and the candlelight services. Those were always really pretty. And those
Yeah.
were-
Yeah, those were great.
Candlelight.
yeah.
Lutheran Memorial Camp has now developed a candlelight service that the staff, they had shared staff the last few summers together, and that was something they really wanted to make sure that they brought over. So
Right.
Good.
Well, I'll just jump in. Yeah, the morning watch, I don't know why, but looking back on that was kind of like my first thing of like real deep prayer and meditation. I didn't realize it's kind of like that's what I was doing. And I love now the contemplative practices that I do as an adult. And I think it started way back in morning watch was one thing. And then the other was I had a camper when I was a counselor that was mentally ill, and we didn't know that. And she had a lot of issues, lying, stealing the fleckathons of the campers and making up crazy stories. And I'd gotten all kinds of, trouble with her parent who was also mentally ill. But now, after that moment, I just wanted to figure out, like, why was she like that? And I cared about her. And so I became a teacher, and I never knew that was going to be a result of that. I became a teacher of emotionally disturbed kids. So
That's
I
pretty
think
big.
that was kind of a seed that was planted, even though it was a really hard experience of having her in my cabin.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Cool.
I think some of the things for me were the big events that my dad would put on for, different things, different years. One year was the circus. We brought Circus Kirk in there, and it was just amazing. He just transformed that camp into the whole, I don't know if it was one ring circus, whatever, but it was huge. And the Eddie Bonnemere festivals and you get a jazz musician in there and get all these kids to sing these beautiful songs, have a whole concert, and the people from town would come in. It was just amazing, the things that you can do. And it just really lightened my eyes that, wow, you can do about anything.
Yeah. Kevin, how about you? Bev, did you want to say something? I don't know if I'm hearing.
No, I was just agreeing with Joel.
Yeah. Those and the Bonnemere festivals, that was incredible to me that senior high campers would spend 4 hours a day singing. That's what they did at camp for fun. And everybody loved it. It was a pretty cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those were good weeks.
How did camp change you, Kevin?
I think it's where I found my life's work. It was the counseling aspect of it, helping people, getting to know people and figure out what's going on in their lives and what causes pain and how to get out of it. And I think that's something that I still do. So.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Kevin's a professor of psychology, and so yeah.
Well, and I do recall at one of them festivals, Kevin wrote a really nice song, Father Time, I think it was. I can remember it to this day. Played and sang that up on stage, and I was like, wow, that was awesome.
Summer. Connie was writing songs. Kevin was writing songs. Everything sounded like America. Or
Yes.
it was awesome. It was great. Yeah, everything
It
still
was.
should.
Really good music.
Yeah, it was.
happening back there.
That was fun. That was great. I want to thank you all. And if I may, I want to say just one thing. Jeff talked about the Oneida Memorial, and I made my gift this morning. We all remember Mowana as a place, and it was indeed a very special place for each of us. It was also really important to us because of the community and the experiences that we had together there. And you can honor the legacy of the place, I think, by supporting the new Oneida porch and future projects at the Fleming Falls Preserve, and I hope that you will. But I want to urge you also to continue to support the ongoing efforts of Lutheran Outdoor Ministry to create the kinds of experiences and community that made Mowana special to us. It'll be in a different place, but summer church camp continues at Lutheran Memorial Camp, at Camp Luther, at Lutheran camps in other states, at other church camps. They all need financial support. They need volunteers. They need summer staff. They need great summer staff, and they need lots of campers. If you don't live in Ohio, there are other places to support like that. For me, Mowana has meant so much to who I have become, and the best things about me, maybe a few of the worst, but mostly the good things. The best way to live out my gratitude for everything Mowana has been for me and to me is to support new opportunities. For me, that will be at Lutheran Memorial Camp. I want to try to help shape that culture. I want to help model that Christ-centered community that I've experienced with each of you throughout the years. It's going to be really good for visitors to get to sit on that new Mowana porch and look out and enjoy God's creation. I think right now it's also vital for campers now in other places to hear explicitly about the God who's responsible for that creation and who loves us and sustains us. So I hope you'll support the Oneida, the Preserve, and all those efforts. And please continue to support outdoor ministries so that other kids can grow up in other places to have the kinds of friendships and growth and training and learning and the experience of the gospel that we've all had. And I just want to say that. So thank you. Thank you, Larkins. Thank you, Deb. And now I think other people may want to have some questions too. So feel free to unmute yourselves. That would be the better way to do that, I guess. And while people are finding their mute buttons, Kevin, I want to say how frustrating it is to me that you're not active on social media, because I feel like I just can't communicate with you and keep in touch because I only can be with people who are online, but I miss you, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
Kevin and I had a radio show together in college.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, we did. There was one night where we were up there. Karen somehow brought her violin with her, and she plays very well. And so she was there with this violin, and so I decided we would have all the world's greatest violinists play songs. So we went through all the record albums in the radio station, and we played Jean-Luc Ponty and all these, the different violinists that we found. And then I picked it up and I said, here is the greatest of all. And I began to play, and I have never played a violin. And I imagine everybody who was listening could determine that also. It was not exactly a very festive evening, but
I think we had a memorable show. I also read part of my geology book over the air one night because we weren't getting requests. I don't remember. But Kevin, you and I played harmonica duets over the PA system sometimes in 2 different keys.
Tis true.
Good times. All right, the rest of you, please speak up, ask questions, say hi.
Hello, Larkins. I was fortunately a senior high counselor or a camper when Bonamere was there last. And then I got to serve your dad's last year at camp as well. I was really wondering, and it may be documented somewhere, how did the Lark and Bonamere meet and forge that friendship and bring it to camp?
Might have to ask Mom.
Do you
Yeah,
remember?
might have to ask Mom.
I think we could ask Mom on that one, but I think it was through John Ginsel, a pastor in New York City.
Yes,
Who was friends with
yes,
Eddie.
it was.
And then John Ginsel somehow came to the church. I don't know if he was, or came to the camp.
John Ginsel was pastor of a church there in Mansfield, and then he went to New York City to be the jazz pastor at the church there in Manhattan. And can't think of what was the name of that.
I don't know.
But anyway, he was the jazz pastor there, and so then in the middle of the night, of course, because of the time change, they would call Dad and asked if he wanted to have Eddie Bonamere come to the camp, and that's how he got there. And he was there, I think, 4 different times. Two of the festivals were, well, the first festival was at First English Church in Mansfield, and it was a packed house. And the whole city was invited, of course. And then there were 2 out at the camp by Oswego on the lawn, and then there was the one out at the pond, by the pond.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Raise your hand, folks. Raise your hand if you were part of a Bonamere festival.
Oh, a lot of hands.
Wow.
Okay. Well, then, in the years since then, Ken and Eddie did things for, because he was also in charge of youth ministry, and so they did one at Purdue, they did one at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or somewhere up there in Massachusetts University, and other places. Another one was, anyway, there was about 4 other ones that they did. And then he brought them here to Phoenix for 3 concerts. One time it was for the Synod Convention of the Grand Canyon Synod. And twice it was in our church, Shepherd Valley Lutheran Church. So it was an ongoing thing that they did until they both, of course, passed away. Eddie passed away in 1997 or around there. And Ken in actually yesterday was the 10-year anniversary of his passing in 2011, February 20th.
Yeah, I was on staff or a counselor when we did senior high week, Christianity, all that jazz with Pastor Gensler and Eddie Bonamere.
And that might have been, that was either the first or second time. Yeah.
It was either 68 or 69. I can't remember if it was the year of staff or counselor. And that's when we went down to the church and did the jazz service at the church in
Oh,
town.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
you were.
I'm taking early retirement this summer, and then I will devote my life to getting all the Mowana archives into some order, and we'll be able to look at the articles and stuff. Martin Patrick has a website now that we'll be able to upload all that stuff, but
Great.
I just have crates in the basement right now. Lots of crates in the basement.
Wow.
I'd like to share a quick memory, if I can, involving the Phrases and the Larkins. Summer of 1976, I was in my second year of being a kitchen steward. I mean, imagine that. Who goes back for 2 years of that? But Ruth, of course, Ruth had an outer persona that we all, those of us that knew her, fully experienced. But if you worked in a kitchen and you mopped her floors well, you were golden. And I was thankfully golden with Ruth. But she sometimes had difficulty dealing with all of the, how do I say this, antics in the dining hall. She would just go back to the kitchen, sit on that stool in the corner and just rah, 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 rah. And I don't know how it happened, but this was the summer of 1976. She thought she wanted to do a little comeuppance for the staff. And so we talked about it as the kitchen staff. She wanted to have her own backwards day because counselors had backwards day. So she wanted to serve supper for breakfast and then have breakfast for supper. And I remember Lark came down, and I remember sitting at the staff table there by the brown cow, and she told him what she wanted to do. And Lark's face was just priceless. I mean, he just loved it. So imagine, this is the big secret with the kitchen staff, the morning of, for breakfast, and you know how sometimes, by Wednesday or Thursday, staff members look, morning, there is Ruth and Virgil and Lark dressed in their evening gowns and tux suits, greeting the staff at the dining hall doors. And they walk in for supper. I wish I could really remember what we had exactly to eat for breakfast, a la supper, but I wish I had had a video camera back then to film the counselors' faces when they walked in. I think Jeff Kohlberg was a counselor and experienced that. Anywho, that was a great memory. And of course, there were some counselors who were not too happy about having breakfast or supper. And I think we had the infamous SOS for supper. So you got SOS, FS.
Well, that's a very appropriate breakfast food.
For supper, yeah. The other, and then that was my little memory I wanted to share, but that's totally ingrained in my brain. I'd like to ask the Larkin children about, or Bev about the essence or the beginning of the theological experiences. If you know about why your dad wanted to do something with those. I know Natalie did a lot of artwork for those. I was curious if he ever asked questions of you children about ideas, or if Bev knows why he wanted to start doing those. But those were really impactful for me and Heaven. And I know a lot of former staff people have used them in multiple contexts for, in other ways and shapes and forms. So that's my question for the Larkin.
That's true. Yes, that's true.
I still have all of them. It's the first one I think was, how do you buy a cheeseburger? Or how do you buy a hamburger?
How to buy a hamburger.
How to buy a
How do you
hamburger.
buy a hamburger?
And
Yeah.
but the one that I remember the most is growing up. Again, I don't remember how he came up with these ideas, but he came up with the idea of the Tinker Toy Church, and then we ended up in our house having the world's largest Tinker Toy set. And these the round pieces were like that big around, and then we could build the church actually out of these Tinker Toys and sit in it. And then they were used when he used it for, usually I think he did it for senior high camp. I think that was where most of them were unveiled.
Pretty cool.
How long did it take him to write those?
I don't remember that.
I remember him just having these ideas. He was just such
Yeah.
a creative person. He'd just go down in the den and at his desk, and within weeks he'd start, Natalie, come see this. And he'd show me little pieces, little snippets. Oh, I need you to draw this. I need you to draw that. And it would come together. And like a lot of you, we were able to use these at senior high week. And it just was such a strong, amazing, creative, interactive experience.
I think a lot of that stuff still holds up to, I've looked at it, some of those as recently as a year ago, and they look, solid today. They're not, they may be dated in terms of some cultural references, but yeah. You, on a not quite related note, I'd like to hear some of everyone's favorite Virgil jokes.
Oh,
There are
boy.
too many of them.
There's a lot.
Deb, did he workshop those at home, or were they just always part of him?
I think he just, I don't know, he just pulled them out of the air sometimes. I don't know where they came from. He was kind of known as the class clown to begin with, so I guess he just carried on.
Remember that
He
animal
was
in the
awesome.
box that he
Yeah.
had?
The chicken
His-
dinner?
yeah, his wild animal,
Yeah, baby rattles,
Baby
baby
rattlers.
rattlers.
his
baby
white
rattlers.
bees.
Two black vipers.
Yeah, the white bees.
The vipers, oh, yeah. the vipers. One that really you probably don't know about, and I was really young, and Joel barely remembers this because I told him the other day. But it was Dad and Virg got together with this little scheme that my dad was going to dress up like Santa. We were all young, and he was going to come to the house and pretend like he was really Santa. And then Virg came too, and then he made these tracks on our roof in the snow, like with a broom or something, and tell kids, look, the sleigh was up there or something like that. I just never forget it, and hearing and seeing Virg was kind of giggling, and then I thought, why isn't Santa talking? He kind of looks tall like my dad. But Joel said Joel believed it was the real Santa.
I did. I was young. I wasn't. I'm pretty sure it was the real Santa. I was like,
And now you look like the real Santa, man.
Yeah.
yeah, Virgil would be proud of my beard. Huh?
Yeah.
He would.
You would.
I remember one time her dad bought Mom a dogwood tree for the front of the house there. And she thought it was so lovely, but she wanted a pink one, and it was a white dogwood. And so Virg got out with some spray paint.
I think he got caught doing that, didn't he? There was also a time when Nursey was trying to grow tomatoes at there's a stop sign there in front of the nurse's house, and she had tomatoes planted, and she was trying to get tomatoes, and there was some little tiny ones on there, and Dad said, look, they're going. He said, just give them some time. So I think it was that evening or maybe in the early morning, he tied great big ripe tomatoes on her tomato plant. So she had fresh ripe tomatoes on her plant.
Excellent. I did want to ask about that it felt like to me growing up, you had Lark, and you had the Larkins, you had the Phrases, you had Ellie and Alverna and the kids. And Joel, at some point a while back, you posted about you and Jimmy would have overnights and camp out in the living room of Iodine.
Yeah, Iodine. We were too young to camp in the woods. We just made tents inside there, and we had fun.
But yeah, was it seemed like it looked like one big family of staff there.
Yeah, I think so.
Much was.
Like I say, my brothers and sisters were older, so.
My dad had sent us little sticks that were supposed to be apple trees. We had 3 of them, and I planted them in the backyard. And so when the one tree got big enough supposed to have apples. It didn't have it yet. Well, I caught Virg out there tying apples on it. And that was funny.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, Deb, you started to say something about the sort of family.
Oh yeah, I think because my brothers and sisters were older and Ellie was there so much, even during the winter, she came out almost every weekend to work. And she was just kind of an extended sister to me. I mean, you know, we spent a lot of time with her, and she took me to some of the camping outings. We met Charles Schultz that writes the Peanut Strip and a few things like that. I used to go with her in the bus to get the government food for camp and
the Ellemobile.
Yep. So yep, it was
Yeah.
just
Government cheese and government peanut butter.
Right, cheese, oatmeal. Yep.
Good food.
Peanut butter was unique. Never found
Yeah, we
anything
used to
quite
go
like it.
with Ellie all the time to just run into town to the post office. Even if she's going into bank or post, she just tell us kids want to go, and we jump in the van. And yeah, it was definitely a big family. It was definitely, and we always ate Sunday brunch together all year long. Remember?
Right. Yeah.
We'd come back, and we'd always go down to the dining hall, and Ruth would make some really nice meal like turkey and dressing, and we always did that. It was like every week.
I remember one time, I don't know if, well, Joel probably is too young to remember, but Pastor Larkin had asked him to say the prayer for the dinner, and he was kind of mumbling and nobody could really hear him. And Pastor Larkin said, Joel, he said, you need to talk up. We can't hear you. And he looked up and he said, well, I wasn't talking to you. So he was pretty little then, but
well, I know Virg, your dad, he was like a grandfather to me. I mean, he taught me so much stuff, and I learned a lot of good work ethic from him. He's just a good, hardworking man, great man.
Thank you.
Yeah, he was great. Really great.
You folks all had some great parents. I'm looking at the screen and realizing that there are people on the screen who remember the Larkins and the Phrases as younger children. I'm wondering what you remember about them. Fish, Sugar Pops, maybe?
Sugar Pops was actually my pastor. He was here in Mansfield, and when I joined church, he was the minister there, and that was mainly the reason why I went there. So yeah, he was our pastor, and Ruth was our organist, and Martin grew up there with my son, and so yeah, just extended family again.
Yep. How about Carl, Sue, anybody? Fish?
I remember how the family, the Phrases, would all just be in the old red pickup truck driving to do all the maintenance and things that needed to be done. The campers would be heading down to eat breakfast, and here would come the Phrases to make sure everything was taken care of around the camp, and how Penny the dog would run along beside the truck and jump in beside Virgil's feet. I remember that so much. And the Larkins, I remember you guys all growing up over the years and keeping your eyes on things and yet staying back out of the campers there, and they were there for a purpose. And I think it was tough for you sometimes not to be hanging out with some people you might have seen before, but I thought you always stayed appropriate distances, and it was always fun to see you guys on the campus, but didn't see much of you.
Well, we were pretty much, and the children, this is Beverly speaking, we were told, certain things that we could be participants in, and so we did do that, but we were pretty well told, to kind of keep ourselves away from the camp, the other, when the regular campers were there, but then each of our children would have a week at camp.
Right.
Yeah, because Natalie started out in the baby camp at 8 years old when we first got there. And that's how it was. Every year, each kid would have their own week at camp, and we tried to maintain a little bit of a distance, although it's hard with their dad being there all day, but we would, it was a good connection. It really was.
Yeah, they called it baby week. I don't think they do that anymore, but I remember getting homesick, at baby week, and I was homesick. And I lived there, but I got homesick
Natalie,
anyway.
I found, Kretzmans will remember this, that the closer someone lived to camp, the more likely they were to get homesick. There was a little girl, one of Alyssa's friends from just down the road, who was homesick. The Kretzman kids weren't homesick, but Tyler, Michelle's little boy, she'd have to hide her car. If he saw the car, he'd want to go home. So yeah, it wasn't unprecedented, Natalie. Yes, and baby week was for 2nd and 3rd graders. In latter years, of course, we had kindergartners who'd come and stay the whole week, or they'd sign up for half a week, and I would call on Tuesday afternoon. I remember calling a parent once who I said, your son would like to stay. She said, oh, well, I didn't pack enough pull-ups. If I need to go buy more diapers so your kid can spend a week away from home, I can take care of that. And we did.
Oh,
That's good.
Well, Nick, what do you think? Or Jeff?
They left us.
Nick, you're
Is
muted.
there anyone else that has any questions?
Yeah.
Anyone else want to ask a question of our guests?
Yeah, Eric here.
Kretzmans, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say how much fun it is to hear reminiscences from these two members of venerable families at Camp Mowana. It's really a treat. So good stories, good to hear. And also a big thank you to Nick and everybody who's working on the memorial. I just think it's really amazing the amount of effort that's gone into this campaign to help preserve the Mowana legacy, and I just think it's awesome. I'm very impressed and pleased.
Nick, I see you giving directions and I can't hear you. He's the mastermind.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
In case somebody here was like, did this for their job or anything. But so thank you all. I'm not trying to end this at all, but I do want to say thank you to those who have been answering all the questions all night. You all have done an amazing job. I also want to say there are so many people here that I think we all would still love to hear from. And so maybe for those of you who haven't been kind of had the opportunity to speak yet, any other memories of Lark or Virgil or anything else? I mean, things that stick out to you, I'd love to hear from some more people.
I appreciated the senior high specials too. So Natalie and I are of an age, and so we were in 3 years of cabins together, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So, but then, and a bunch of us, Roger, and we'd all come the same week in August. So there was a long tradition. But then we go to senior high week too, or senior high week, and then the senior high special. And I don't know where he got the idea to start those, but I went on the Windjammer cruise and on the Cherokee specials. And those were both very momentous weeks for me. Of course, a couple of those years, I'd go as many weeks as I could get to camp. But those were both really, momentous weeks and have stood out in my memory.
My memories is that my first exposure to Camp Mowana, unfortunately, was the year I was a counselor. And I felt how Pastor Larkin was able to unite us and bring us all together as a family real quickly. And I remember one incident that I still sticks in my mind. I hope I remember correctly all these years, back in '68. We got a message that we had a mandatory staff meeting on Saturday after the campers left. Very stern morning. So all that we got on Wednesdays, all the rest of the week, we're all wondering, what did we do wrong? What's going on? So we all assemble, and the Lark says, I should have done this more often and learned more about what's happening in this camp. What he was doing is he had arranged for us to go down to Columbus to go to the Kenley players.
Oh.
And he did that kind of as a way. And he says, I learned more about the camp and more true confessions this week than I've ever had. And that kind of, in a way, was one of my early experiences, that how we did things just to bring us together. I remember we had several other festivals for us. That's also, we went up here. Oh, I forgot now, up to the Candlewood, where was up in Cleveland, the concert place up there.
Awesome.
Tanglewood?
Just the things that summer to bring us together, an infamous scavenger hunt. We won the clues actually on the wall of the state prison there. And the other one I remember was the clue was something about the whale. And we're searching around the garbage cans at a McDonald's, and what Pastor Lark had done was bribed the owner of the McDonald's that if he bought a fish sandwich, in the fish sandwich was a clue for the next, what the next clue was.
Ahab and Whitey.
I mean, it was, the 2 years when I was on staff there, we never wanted to leave on Saturday night after campus left, because we knew there was something that was bringing us all together as a group, and no one has ever wanted to leave camp. It was like, there's no reason to go home or go anywhere on Saturday, because that was our family. And that was one of the greatest experiences I think I had when I was growing up in college, was being at the camp those 2 years. And unfortunately, only could do 2 years. Because 1 year a counselor, 1 year as a pool guy.
For me, I was really always impressed with the personalness of the Lark. And to me, it especially hit home in one of the other roles that he had, was in charge of the professor leadership unit. And when I was at seminary, being from the Ohio Synod and being at Gettysburg, he would come out to visit us at Gettysburg. The interesting thing, people like Bill Dean, Darryl Lovak, myself were there at the time, and we just wear jeans and a t-shirt like we would any other day to class. But when, and we would meet with the Lark during the day, and at night we'd have pizza and beer. But when the other students there, when their professional leadership unit would show up, they'd all be dressed in suits and ties, putting on this thing, and we're like, well, it's the Lark, he's coming. And just the personalness that he had. And I remember years later talking about theological experiences, I wanted to use Ahab and Whitey. And I asked him, could I make some editorial changes? And he said, sure, do what you want with it. And the freedom to go ahead and take his work. And I have to say, there were very, very few changes I made. It still was pertinent 30 years later and that.
Good. That's good. One of the songs that Ken and Eddie wrote, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think so. Yeah, they got thumbs up, Mom.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You're fine.
One of the songs they wrote, I'm going on a journey and I'm starting today. My head is wet and I'm on my way, is in the new red hymnal, number 446. And just the other day, I was talking to one of the people in our church. I work with the grief committee, and her mother had passed, and she took that song to the funeral in Texas at a church there, and they used it for her funeral. So it's just every once in a while I get a note in the mail or an email telling me that they've used that song. And Natalie's church, I know, has used it quite a lot in their services. And anyway, just wanted you to know that things. And then when we moved here to Phoenix, he didn't stop doing these things. He had those theological experiences that he wrote for the people here. And the first one was called The Desert Man. And it just kept going, you know, for years. And then and you mentioned the sailing ship things. We had about 12 of those here out of the coast, the California coast at those various ports, and took about maybe 20 people, like from our church or their friends. And that was especially enjoyed. And he would always write a whole little book for each one. And he did that for our women of the church too, when he was the chaplain for that. And it had the Bible lessons, all that had to do with the sea or those kind of adventures. So it just spread. It just spread.
Mm-hmm. I have somewhere a songbook of songs that Lark and Eddie did together.
Yes,
Good
we did
stuff.
do a whole songbook, and that is not in like a published thing though. But it's been used by other people too. But I don't know, you know, I think I might have one copy here yet, but that's that too had all of their ones that they. Of course, Eddie wrote music even before he got together with Ken. So that "Help Me Jesus" was one that was in the hymnal that was for I think African American Lutheran people before they made the Red Book. So all these things, you know, kept going. Some of them kept going.
Yes, indeed. There are a lot of them that we still remember, I think, from. Usually we learned them during Eddie's visits, but a lot of Lark songs.
Mm-hmm.
As a little one at family camp, I have vivid memories of the Lark's Magic Show. And actually own a set of black and white rabbits.
Yes.
I have a lot of memories of that too. I was his presenter a lot of times, and I think Kevin and Natalie both were at times too. Or helped him out in those magic shows.
And
And
I was even before you kids were born.
I remember Natalie getting cut in half.
I do too.
Oh,
Arrows
yeah.
to the head. Arrows to the head.
Like that could be traumatic for the campers.
The head.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
I have vivid memories of it.
Yeah.
Such a
amazing church.
Talented family.
This is off topic, but I keep looking at Alicia, who is obviously sitting outdoors in front of a fire. Am I correct, Alicia? You're muted, but she must be someplace warm.
No, she looks like she's not.
There you go.
They're camping.
Where are you camping?
I don't
no
think she heard.
internet
There's
access.
interpreting.
Maybe
Well, anyway, you look cozy. I'm sitting here in front of the pines.
I know.
I keep asking myself, where is everybody these days?
At
We're
home.
not all in Ohio anymore.
That's true. I'm in the state up north.
Okay. Enough said.
Yeah. Kevin's in West Virginia. Natalie is in California, yes? Joel is on Fleming Falls Road, about, what, 2 miles from camp?
Yeah, about a mile and a half down the road.
Deb's in Mifflin.
Roger, where are you?
Yeah.
I'm in Lancaster,
Okay.
Ohio.
Yeah.
Eric
Doing
and
Max is
Cincy?
in Seattle.
Pam, yeah, Pam somewhere up in Washington.
Yeah, where are you,
Pacific
Pam?
Northwest, Seattle, Washington, the place to be.
Did I Seattle?
Wow. I was going to mention for Kevin, when John Prine passed away, really took me back to the old Dear Abby all the songs that you
gosh.
and Jimmy used to sing. That was just such a great group of musicians, and really appreciated that. And Deb, I was going to mention, I was dining hall supervisor in 1977, and I was afraid of your mother for about 5 minutes until I realized how wonderful she was. And I do, I know how to mop a floor, and I know how to clean a table correctly because of her. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
Heavy. My church would go every fall for a retreat, and they were all terrified of your mom. And I remember telling them, she's just a cupcake, and they're like, I'm not going near her. I said, well, if you just do things right,
Here was the theme.
My sister especially, she's like, are you sure? I said, yeah, she's great.
I know one time, one of the winter retreats, she always poured the first cup of hot coffee, and then she left a pot on the table, and she was pouring coffee, and the one minister, I don't remember who it was, but looked up at her and he said, is that hot? And she just stuck her finger right in his coffee cup, said, yep, and went right on her way.
Speaking of coffee memory, one of the years on administrative staff, we were always so afraid we went down for coffee at night that we didn't properly leave the coffee cups before we went. That we would hear about it the next morning. We didn't properly rinse them and leave water in for our nighttime coffees down there. We were definitely afraid of doing it wrong.
Kitchen stewards don't like coffee stained, those plastic mugs. Thank you very much.
A little fear is a healthy thing sometimes, huh?
Hey, Karen.
Yes.
Sorry, I had to go into settings and unmute myself. So
I'm sorry to make it so much trouble. Where are you? It looks beautiful somehow.
We're out by Lake Pleasant, out in the desert, camping.
It must be fairly warm there?
Yeah, it's chilly tonight, but sorry I'm late, but I know you'd understand. We streamed Nickel Creek, the concert tonight.
You have to do what you have to do. I couldn't afford it, but was it great?
It was great. Next
Okay.
Sunday too.
I was introduced to Nickel Creek through Ben Sheets at Camp Mowana in the morning.
Wow.
PA music. Kevin would wake us up one day a week.
Thursday morning.
Pink Floyd time. At Clash.
After the dance.
That's the only thing I've ever not liked about you, Kevin. Boy, that was painful.
Well, that was a classic one because the time starts with all the
alarm clocks.
Alarm clocks. Yeah, it does. Oh, it was brutal. And we would have
And I was
slept
going to say
out.
with Pam,
Yeah, we were already tired.
with Pam talking about John Prine, but also Shel Silverstein I was introduced to
Oh,
by
yes.
Kevin and Jim. And John
Firestein
Prine.
Theater.
I'm a children's librarian, so that was significant, being introduced to Shel Silverstein. So
We were not permitted to use the ABZ book with our campers.
No.
My copy's right over there on my shelf here.
My camp is where I learned of its existence, so it was being used for the adults.
Firesign Theater somehow, and that never
That
quite made
too.
it into yeah.
Men in Tights. There was a very
Yeah.
Men in Tights summer counselor. Yeah.
There's a memory to be buried.
Don't you wish you had video
Roger.
of that?
Roger Quay was in on that one too.
Yeah, remember they wanted the script? So was
We
Jeff.
had the staffs and stuff too, as I recall.
Jeff was too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was
As
no
long as we're
script.
talking about
That was the funny
era.
thing. There was no script.
No,
We had like 2 lines. My name is Stanley. I don't like Stanley. That was the line.
But you were all wearing tights.
Yeah.
We were.
I don't know why somebody got those.
Well,
We're
Verna
going to
got
talk
it.
about this era. I think we should mention Jeff's white shorts.
Oh,
The Friday picnic.
Jeff Kahlberg. Let's be sure to be specific. Jeff Kahlberg. Thank you.
Yes, Jeff Kahlberg. Sorry, Burkett had more sense. No. We would serve the picnic food at the long picnic table on the porch of Oneida. We would all be sitting in a row.
No, it'd be at the picnic area.
Somehow Jeff would always be at the bottom of the picnic table end, And the bug juice, the big trash can full of bug juice would be at the top end. And somehow, collectively, with a little teamwork, that bug juice would run all the way down that picnic table and hit Jeff's white shorts. Every time, every week.
Mhm.
Oh, my heavens. It was a good showing of the 76 and 77, 78 years here. Quite.
Been a minute. It's nice. I mean,
You
looking at
mentioned-
the screen, I think John Watson might be the youngest of us here tonight. I could be wrong. And I won't say who's the oldest, but they're older than I am. But it is so nice to see these faces.
Yeah.
Sugar Pops, do you want to say anything?
No, he's retired. He doesn't talk anymore. He's on mute.
He's muted.
But often he
make-
doesn't say anything.
Did Sugar Pops make it to 21 yet?
Yeah, that's the question.
Right, Sugar Pops was born on a leap year. On a leap
I
day.
hear you now.
Good day.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm not 21, I'm only 18.
Oh,
At 18 last year.
I'm gonna
Hey,
know,
hey,
I think I know the answer to this. Kevin, do you still play guitar at all?
Very rarely.
How about the rest of all these guitar players on the screen? At one time, Katie wrote me a song last night at what, 8:30 p.m. I needed something for church. So she did it. We should all be like Katie. Jeff, are you still playing, Jeff Colbert?
No, I'm not. I'm not. In fact, I sold my last guitar about 8 years ago. That's been it.
I used to
hadn't
love it
played
when you would play your
10 years
guitar
prior to
before,
that.
as we were all going to bed.
I still have the same one.
Do you?
Mine is a planter now. I have a new one because there was a little too much playing outdoors. Roger still plays.
Good.
A little bit, yeah. It's taken a hit with COVID and we're not being able to sing at worship.
I lead little kid music on Zoom before church.
Remember Eric Ross and Mick Aber both played a lot too.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, the Aber. Yeah.
That era of counselor might be what made me a guitar player.
My brother
some
Dave still plays.
Comment about.
Does he play? Good, good. Yeah, so he was part of that generation. Yeah.
My
Yeah.
brother
Yeah,
started
you-
playing.
I did find out last week that there's a little girl, a couple little girls. I've got a lot of kids with plastic ukuleles at our church, but there's one little girl who has started taking guitar lessons for real. So I feel partially responsible for this and very pleased.
Well, I'll jump into the awkward silence just to say, please, I mean, stick around as long as, like, I don't want this to end. I want to keep hanging out, but I realize that in the Eastern time zone, it's getting a little late. And while we have everyone, can we please thank all of our guests and thank Karen and Jeff.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Like I
Thanks,
said,
Deb and Watkins and
Yeah.
Bev.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Good seeing
thanks for
everybody.
Let me say too, just, and this is maybe presumptuous of me, but I know Nick is eager to have more of these conversations happen. And I can think of a dozen people that I'd love to hear from or talk to or hear stories from. If you have suggestions for other people that you'd like to hear from, let Nick know, let me know, and I'll let Nick know, let Jeff Burkett know, let somebody know.
I think your idea of Rich and Dawn was a good idea. Haven't heard from them for a long time.
There's a whole younger, huge younger generation, mostly not showing up for these things so far, but some very interesting stories from them too. So lots to tell.
And Katie would have a lot to tell.
I have a story or two.
Yeah.
Speaking of
I bet. All
Are Eric and Chris, are you still here? Oh, love to hear.
Kurtzman's, they're still.
Yeah, I know they turn off the video.
Yes.
Where are you all now and what have you all been up to?
We're in Avon, Ohio.
Okay.
Eric? They're asking what you've been up to. Oh, go ahead.
Who am I talking to?
Well, Nick
Oh,
and
everybody.
everyone.
Oh, hey, Nick.
We're all
Good to see you, man.
Yeah.
Happily retired in Avon, Ohio, living in relative obscurity. So we're doing fine.
That's the goal, isn't it?
Nice to see you this
That's
evening.
the goal. Alyssa's a pastor in Milwaukee.
Okay.
And Justin is the nursery manager at a nursery down the road here.
Wow. Great. Sounds great. I mean, I'm very glad that you two could join us tonight, and glad to hear that the kids are doing well.
Yeah, it was cool.
And yeah, you're on the list of people that we want to have involved in one of these conversations. So
yeah, it's fun.
Be interesting to see how many siblings have worked at camp. I know we could have a whole shackle evening, so definitely would like to have a shackle evening.
Although 2 of my siblings who worked at Mowana are gone now, so it's just me and Jimmy and Dave.
Was that 5 out of 7 that worked at Mowana or Luther?
Linda worked at Luther, so 6 of 8.
Yeah. You might be the winner.
Just remember family camp, your family was always there and the Dudashes were
Yep.
right side by side there.
Yep, Awasna and Latonka. Yeah.
It'd be nice to get Jim Hentges on one of these to hear some Alverna stories.
Yeah. Yeah. We and Jeff and I talked a little bit about having Jim on tonight, but it was quite a group already. So we'll get some more stories.
I sent the invite to attend, but I might have sent it too late. Sorry about that.
Good night, Sugar.
Yep. Good night, Sugar Papa.
Good night.
Well, I hope we have, I can't wait for the next one, but I'm going to sign off. I have a 5:30 van tomorrow morning, so.
I'm starting to realize that I should be planning my morning class, but you know, I don't want to be rude here.
I mean, maybe we just say
have lots of time.
yeah. We could just say we'll do this again soon, and then hopefully we'll see all of each other then too. So
Nick, thank you so much for making this possible, and Jeff for organizing it. And,
yeah. Thank you for
again.
Yeah.
Nice job interviewing, Karen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Did a
great
good job.
question.
Thanks, folks.
And Beverly, it's so nice to have you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I can see Jeff Burkett's face and Karen Saupe and Jeff Colbert, but that's the only ones that show on my
Well, we're the only ones we're seeing. No big deal.
We are the pretty ones.
has a block with their name under it though.
Oh.
I can see that.
We'll set this up so you can watch it later, at least.
Yeah.
And see everybody's faces.
And you'll be able to see a few more.
This was fun though.
Thank you all.
yep. Thank you, Karen.
Good night.
Bye.
Night.
Bye.
Good to see you, Kevin.
Good to see you. Nice beard.
Kevin and Joel, my brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to do this again. The
Yep.
Larkin
Definitely.
brothers.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll try to keep this momentum going. You know, like let's not say, oh, we'll do this again and then put it off and never do it. So we'll try to stay on top of it.
Great.
Kevin, Natalie, Joel, thank you very, very much.
Yes,
Deb.
Alrighty.
yes, and
Thank you,
Deb.
everybody.
Deb.
Good seeing Deb too.
Oh, thanks. You too.
If I come into town, if I visit Joel, I'll visit you.
I enjoy your nature pictures on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm out there all the time.
And Joel, and we've said this before, but thank you for all you've been doing to sort of help make this transition and have us know that someone who loves the place is there to care for it.
Yeah, it's,
Do you
they're
want to
doing a
share?
pretty good job out there, I would have to say, you know, with everything they're doing. So I'm,
What I've seen is very impressive, and I said this before someplace, but you walk. I walked up and saw where the pool had been and couldn't quite figure out what was different. How you make a whole pool disappear and have it look okay?
right.
That takes some skill. So
Joel,
Right.
and I don't want to keep the people any longer than they need to be, but Joel, do you want to share any recent happenings at the preserve? Some things.
Yeah.
Well, it's been under a lot of snow recently and not a whole lot's been going on, but there's been a lot, you know, we've been trying to get some numbers together for a few safety things on the bridges and some railings, and there's going to be a work day, I think, on March 6th.
Yeah.
I think it
I
is.
think that's right. I
And
believe
I'm
that's
gonna
right.
be out there heading up a crew and, you know, helping get that all organized. So that should be a really big day to get some stuff done out there.
Well, thanks for all that.
All right, I'm gonna end this meeting.
Okay.
Okay,
Good night, everybody.
Yeah.
see ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.